Welcome to the ACC Panic Room alongside Lauren Brownlow. I'm Joe Ovies. And Duke, North Carolina, ending the regular season in a very unique fashion, Lauren. Typically, we talk about, who's going to win the regular season? Who'll be the number one seed in the ACC tournament? Or which one of these teams is most likely to go to a Final Four? That's what we typically talk about with this matchup. Is this a loser goes home match on Saturday between Duke and Carolina?
It could be. I think North Carolina probably has a little more cushion, but that's relative because at that point, North Carolina will probably have to win multiple ACC tournament games, and they also will probably need their draw to shake up well in terms of both teams they can beat and then also teams that will help them. So it's not, but for Duke it is. I think that it absolutely is. And I think, God, is this I'm gonna have to go back and check if this might be the first time in forever that both teams went into both meetings coming off of losses.
I don't think. I want to say that's happened more recently than not.
For both games, though.
Yeah, for both games. Both games. I want to say that's happened more recently than not, but again, I don't have any information in front of me on that one. What else is new on the ACC Panic Room? I'm just kind of winging it. Regardless, I'm with you in that North Carolina is in a better position than Duke going into this game to withstand a loss. Yeah. But as we talked about on the show yesterday, you, me, and Giglio, if Carolina has an early exit from the ACC tournament, then all you're really doing is bumping yourself back into a muddled group and giving the selection committee a reason to examine you and possibly keep you out. You can have some bubble luck. Other teams in your category could lose games too, because you have to remember it's not just about what you are doing; it's about what other teams are doing. So right now, North Carolina has some decent metrics that would put you on the bubble. They're 2-7 in Q1 games. They're 5-1 in Q2. They have good numbers relative to the rest of the field, but you can't afford another loss at home, even to this Duke team that has so-so measurables. And then traditionally, teams that lose early in conference tournament play, the first game or the second game, will find themselves on the outside looking in as well. Duke, I think you and I will agree on this one. Duke needs to win Saturday straight up. Otherwise, I mean, this losing streak, they're tough losses. They're both in overtime to good programs, Louisville and Georgia Tech. I know, coming out of a couple of COVID pauses and getting crushed by North Carolina by 45 points makes you wonder, well, how good is this Louisville team? They're a decent team. And then we make our jokes about Josh Pastner, and he brings them on. Don't get me wrong, but he's done a hell of a job with Georgia Tech this season, and they're going to be in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I will say this about Pastner. I don't he's very earnest, and I don't I don't know that. I know that he doesn't necessarily mean to be funny, and I can sympathize with that in a way. Growing up, that was kind of me, the person that people would laugh at, and I'd be like, I wasn't making a joke. But Josh is just very his awkward dorkiness is very relatable. So I get it. So I'm not but I do think he's I can't think of a lot of other coaches that are as unintentionally funny as him in ACC basketball history, really. So but no, I mean, he's done a good job with them. I do think that their end of game execution needs a lot of work. They get to the end of games and melt down. It's honestly, because you and I were texting back and forth last night because we were planning on doing a Panic Room if Duke lost. Duke goes into overtime. And we're both okay, we can wait till the morning, whatever. But, we're both going back and forth. And you said, it looks like Duke's going to lose. I'm like, oh, don't count Georgia Tech out of this. And sure enough, they nearly blew overtime too.
And sure enough, they almost blew overtime. And Duke got a good look there at the end. And obviously,
they had a bunch of looks, really, in regulation and in overtime. Yeah.
Yeah, and, you don't know how that game goes if Matthew Hurt doesn't foul out. Wendell Moore had a good first half, but things slowed down for him in the second half. And Mark Williams had a good game, too. And I think that's what I'll be curious about with this upcoming matchup between Duke and North Carolina. With North Carolina, it's pretty simple, right? How's the guard play looking? I mean, we can talk about Day'Ron Sharp and Armando Bacot and Walker Kessler had a great game against Florida State. Garrison Brooks has his moment, whatever. I think if we're going to boil North Carolina down to its essence, are the guards playing well? Is Kerwin Walton out of his shooting slump? okay, then I'm gonna like North Carolina's chances. It's Duke that's more intriguing in this second meeting because even though they found themselves on the losing end of overtime games, this is a much more cohesive unit. And you've seen Mark Williams really come along as of late. Matthew Hurt's truly in the driver's seat of the offense right now, and obviously we know about Wendell Moore. So I'll be curious to see how this particular Duke group, now that they've gotten comfortable without Jalen Johnson, looks against the Tar Heels on Saturday.
Yeah, the other thing that intrigues me about Duke is the fact that all year long, it's not like their freshman guards have been amazing, but they've been fine. They're been fine. Steady enough.
Yeah.
They've one or both of them usually gives Duke, low double digits, which is great. That's exactly what you want. They don't turn it over a ton. Like they give you exactly what you want. But in the last couple of games, admittedly against veteran backcourts, they've struggled, and Coach K said it straight up. Like he had to go with a different lineup down the stretch. And we saw that because he was not getting enough on either end of the court from the freshman guards. I mean, he didn't straight up call them out, but like we knew what he was getting at.
Yeah.
And, Jordan Goldwire is not a scorer. That's not his game. He can give you good defensive plays, and it's not like he can't hit any shots, but that's the thing is like they are not their freshman wall. It seemingly maybe came a little bit later. And, obviously the challenge against North Carolina's guards isn't going to be quite the same thing, but you have to kind of wonder where the confidence is at for Roach and Stewart, because this is probably the most inconsistent stretch of the season for both of them when you kind of put them together in a package. Because like I said, you usually get a good game out of one of them. And for the last 2 games now, that has not happened.
Yeah, it's been iffy.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to watch too. And then don't forget, the last time Duke and Carolina played, Duke still had Jalen Johnson. So it was not quite the same looking team. Mark Williams only played, I think, like 12 minutes looking at it.
Yeah, that's why I brought that up. I'm just kind of curious with this is not the same group. And I think it'll be I don't hate Duke's chances in this game in the same way that I did the first meeting. Like I had Carolina in that first meeting. I thought Carolina was just playing better at that time and Duke was still figuring things out. I think Duke, even with the overtime losses, has at least identified who they are. Whether they can execute is another matter, but at least I know what this Duke team's about. Whereas earlier in the first meeting, I didn't really know what this Duke team was about. So that'll be a curiosity for me going forward. Meanwhile, I guess we'll close on this. I guess Duke and Carolina fans are like just living that bubble life, which is they're not accustomed to this. And I'm sure State fans are just, I already had my coffee this morning, but I'm sure they're just kind of sipping their coffee, sipping their tea like, oh, what do you think about this lifestyle?
Yeah, the bubble life. And State's in a weird spot too, because like you could, I've started to get some questions from State fans, like what is it about Duke's resume versus ours that has them higher in net? I mean, we could go all day into that. I think but we don't need to. I mean, some of it is just some of the games that State lost in the beginning of the year because of the, their own COVID issues with Michigan. I think they had UConn up in that tournament. Yeah. They lost that game.
Well, here's the biggest differentiator for NC State and Duke. Actually, there's two. If you're just looking solely at Q1s, right? Duke and State have each have one Q1 win. Okay, It's in the Q2 where things get a little dicey, where Duke is 5-4 in Q2 and NC State is 2-2 in Q2. Now, you're probably, well, what's not that big of a deal, right? Here's the issue for NC State and what we could see on Saturday against Virginia Tech if it actually happens. NC State, because of COVID, has missed out on opportunities to improve their resume.
Yes.
The Georgia Tech game never got rescheduled. The Louisville game never got rescheduled. And NC State needs, before we even talk about Notre Dame tonight, right?
Yeah.
They need that Virginia Tech game. And I think that's going to be, as Julio and I were joking about on the broadcast yesterday, I mean, this would be a next level of NC State stuff where the games you needed to help build your resume never happen. I'm not saying you win these games. I'm simply pointing out that NC State never got an opportunity to improve their resume because of COVID.
Yeah, and it's been a weird year in that way, and that's why I never really, this season of college basketball, I just never really felt quite right about it. I don't think that our group of teams here in the Triangle will be the only ones who potentially miss the tournament if any or all of them do, because they couldn't get games rescheduled. And I'm talking less about Duke in that sense than I am even like a Duke and North Carolina and NC State, because NC State missed some games that would have really helped them. I mean, even North Carolina, they didn't get to play Virginia Tech either. They were supposed to, I think Virginia Tech was supposed to come to the Smith Center. They were supposed to play Clemson again at home. That would have really helped them. They get neither of those either. And you know, Carolina fans were talking about the Miami game or whatever. Miami game wasn't going to help you, but those games would have helped you, and they don't get them now. So yeah, you could have had one more potential good win in your cap, and you don't get that now. And State is missing way more than that too. So it is what it is. Like, again, we talk, you know, it's just one of those things where you look at it and you're like, man, it would have been nice to have had those games so we had a better idea of who everybody is.
That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the ACC Panic Room. We will see you all Saturday night after Duke and North Carolina. Was it 6 o'clock? I think that game is. I appreciate the network allowing us to be old and washed and go to bed at a decent time on a Saturday.
Yeah, and by the way, North Carolina since February began is you think they don't make sense? Well, I think in ACC play at least, they have a perfect pattern of win-loss going on that Ken Palm. So yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, I guess that maybe bodes well for them if we're trying to pick something out of the air to figure out how to predict this game, because I got nothing else. I got no other logic or reason.
We'll see you all Saturday night.